Hey folks, Sassy and I would like to welcome you for today's daily journal. She was just up here and she will probably be back again. And since I'm not doing any fiddly painting, I've decided that it's okay if she keeps me company. So I am going to continue working on yesterday's journal. So if you remember yesterday, excuse me, we took some white acrylic ink and put that over the background of these wonderful little concertina booklets so that it would mute those background marks and colors. And there's still a fair amount of pigment that wasn't sealed in the initial gesso layer, so that has still come through. And I really like the effect. I think it's very successful. My eye now rests on the vases instead of feeling confused about where it should go. And I feel like we have some pieces we can really work with here. I figure the next thing to do, I was looking at it and I pretty much instantly knew that I wanted to put some flowers in of some kind. And I'm gonna do it with dip pen and ink. I may use some other media too, but that's definitely where I want to start. I really love playing with dip pens and ink. I'm not someone who ever really used fancy pens, and I don't do calligraphy, and I don't really even remember what made me want to start playing with these other than, I mean, they are pretty cool, right? So I've got this wonderful little set of nibs here. I have two tins. I got a sampler of nibs from a store that does a lot of like calligraphy art type things, and it was a great way to try a lot of different ones out and see which ones really work for me. I think samplers are wonderful for stuff like that. There's some of the nibs that just, I can't get them to do anything for me, and there were others that were really fun and interesting and exciting to work with. And if I hadn't been able to try a few out in a way that was reasonably accessible from a price point perspective, I don't know if I would have ever gotten into this, because I could have very easily tried a nib and some ink that I just didn't like. And didn't like the feel of, or didn't get the result I wanted, and immediately say, okay, dip pens aren't for me, and move along. But because I had so many to try, I was able to just test them out one after another on some paper and quickly go through them and figure out which ones I liked. And they're really hard to see exactly what they are. It doesn't help that it's kind of dark outside, so even my supplemental light is not letting me get a good look at that. I will try and link the sampler set I got down below this video in case that's something that interests you. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. I have a lot of iridescent ink. I have Dr. P.H. Martin's iridescent ink. The only reason I bought these was because I like the brand. I use their Hydrus watercolors from time to time. And I think I found a set of these large size bottles at a flea market for about half of what they normally go for. So I went ahead and picked them up. I have several of these Ferris wheel press calligraphy inks. I really love them. I will say I've not had as much luck with their pens, but I do like the ink itself. I have some of those, as well as a couple of fountain pens and their fountain pen ink. So this color here, which I'm sure I'm going to use, is Golden Gala. It's not your typical gold. It's got a little bit of almost a greenish hue to it, and it's a really neat color. This one is Parkside Stroll. It's lovely green. But I'm gonna, I think, start with this P.H. Martin Iridescent Green, partly because it's what I picked up first. And I've been shaking it while I've been talking, so it's pretty well mixed, because that's the thing with the iridescent colors. You have to shake them really good before you use them. And I'm just going to go ahead and dip my pen in and start, if I can get enough ink, start drawing some leaf shapes. What's going to be fun here is, because there are some marks already and lines in this background, I kind of like the idea of playing with it and seeing if I can draw some of those marks forward and turn them into flowers and leaves. So that's what I did with this one. It's kind of a weird leaf shape, sure, but it was, I don't know, the lines were already there and it felt very natural to do. So in a lot of ways, I'm trying to carry those lines out of the background. Very similar to when you see things in the clouds. It's kind of the same thing. Like, I distinctly see a flower here. So when I come back through with a different color ink, I'm gonna want to put I'm going to pull that flower forward and add it to our vase here. So one of the things that can be hard for me is drawing different types of flowers. I do have a notebook I've started where I try and doodle out different flower shapes, either that I've seen in work or from nature that I'm looking at and drawing. I've taken some shape ideas, I guess you could say, from Peggy Dean's. Oh, there we are. I knew she was going to join us. And we didn't knock over the ink. Peggy Dean has a botanical line drawing book that's wonderful. And I played around and practiced varying leaf and flower shapes from there, and kind of kept a catalog for myself. We are very in it all of a sudden. Oof. Okay. Oh, well, we smeared this. Yep, there it is in your tail. Excuse me, everyone. Oh. I know. How many of you were looking and watching that pen roll towards her fur? Let me get your tail. No, I know you don't want it. I know. But this is the hazard, Sassa. Okay, you got it up. If a little bit's still there, it'll just be shiny, I suppose. Nope, and now she's on the... I thought this was safer than paint, but I'm beginning to think it's the opposite. Let's see if we can do something with this, if you just smudged, sweetie. I feel like anything is possible. Let's see. Yeah, so I've drawn and redrawn the leaves and flowers from Peggy Dean's botanical line drawing book, and I now have just a little notebook where I sort of catalog shapes from there and from other pieces I've made. And when I run out of ideas for flowers, because a lot of times I want to doodle them and I'm not looking at something specific, and it can be difficult to think of a shape. So I start to do the same shapes over and over again, and it can be really helpful to have that notebook as a reference for myself when I get stuck. So this one, I don't have space above the vase to add flowers and leaves, but I can have leaves that dangle, sort of vining leaves coming down on either side of the pot, so that's kind of fun to play with. And anytime that I start to have trouble making a line, I just go and add a little bit more to my dip pen, because I don't want it to run out. So I have a feeling that for a lot of these, I'm probably going to end up going back through with some other medium, because I'm finding this green, while lovely, is definitely not all that dark, and so it's not really showing up very well on the piece. But that's okay. The good news is, for the moment, Sassy seems to have stabilized here and has recontented herself with sitting next to me and not being all over me. Let's hope that lasts. All right. Since I'm not loving the way that's going, I'm going to go ahead and set it aside and just let it dry as it is. One wonderful, lovely thing that you can do in art is, first of all, try stuff. So take risks, experiment. That's how you end up with all the good stuff anyway, in my opinion. When it doesn't work the way you had hoped, go ahead and make sure you've used enough of it in the piece that it at least looks intentional, and then move on. So that's exactly what I'm going to do here. We've got enough of those leaves that they aren't going to look like a mistake. But I'm going to switch to a darker color, even though it's not green. So I'm going to have to just have not realistic leaves. Not that those leaves I had drawn were all that realistic anyway. And that means I can also have not realistic flowers. So I'm just going to go ahead and start drawing both leaves and flowers. This is so funny. I don't often draw flowers with the pointy petal shape, but I've done it twice in about the span of a week, because I know it made it in one of my other journal videos. So it's weird because that's just not a flower shape that normally speaks to me. I tend to like rounder flower shapes. I like really jagged shapes, just not for botanicals for some reason, not for flowers. For flowers, I tend to go very soft. I like to do little C-curve rosettes. So I'm just drawing like little C lines, like the letter C. And when you bunch a bunch of them up, when you put a bunch of them together like this, they make a sort of floral rosette shape. I really enjoy that. I do a lot of rounded edge flowers. Usually they're a little bit skinnier ovals, but this one's still nice. I'll do way more of these than I will of those pointy tipped flowers. So I don't know why I'm suddenly making this shape. I still don't particularly love it. Like, it is not a shape that resonates with me all that much, but it keeps showing up right now. So I'm not gonna say no to it. I like that one actually. Maybe I just need to draw more of them than I have been. I'm actually going to put a bunch of them in here and let them overlap. Like, I don't need to fill these in. I wanted them to be line drawings, so if they start to go on top of each other, I'm just going to go with it. And they'll all just sort of maybe melt in to one another. And they're going to look maybe pretty cool. Or not. I guess we'll find out. There we go. It's got a few of those in here. Keep going until I get bored of them. Just drawing happy little flowers. Really loving these suddenly. Who knew? Okay, I'm gonna let those dry a little before I work on them anymore. I don't want to run the risk of smudging. And I'm gonna come back in here and do more of these little rounded petal flowers. And I think part of the reason I'm ending up at least with the rounder petal shape and some of the especially even that shape, I think a little bit of it is happening just as a result of using the dip pen and the nib over this gesso. The surface is rough even after that acrylic ink we applied yesterday. Nope, we don't want to go over there. No, I don't want you to get more ink in your tail, sweet girl. Yeah. And see, now I've got it on my finger. But that's easy for me to clean off. Yeah, just a smudge now. The nib is kind of bouncing around, and it's just a little bit jagged. So I'm getting essentially some resistance. And every so often it just kind of like moves in a different direction, which is not something I'm used to. But I like it because it is dictating the shapes a little bit. It's making me slow down and be very mindful of where I'm putting these lines, and I like that. I will say it works a little easier when I've got more ink on my nib, so that's particularly while I'm working on these circular flower shapes here. I keep going back and refilling because I'm getting shapes I like more when I do that. And so this, I'm just gonna do, these are not, you know, I'm not doing a careful, real life study of any flowers, and so I mean there are plenty of little flowers that are round, but if you're looking at this and wondering what flower I'm making, I don't know, it's the flower that's in my heart at the moment. That's what flower I'm making, and honestly these little circles are making me so happy. I don't care if they don't look at all like a flower. They're making me happy. All right, that's my favorite so far, hands down. I just like the lines. I like the way they're coming out of that. And then this is interesting. I don't remember exactly how I ended up here, but I have this like upside down jug. Everything else is facing a different way, and I think I'm going to come in here with a completely different color and add flowers around it and just not really worry about putting them in the vase, if you will. Oh, I think some of that's been off camera, and I do apologize. I was working around Sassy, and I didn't look to see how it was affecting the recording, and so I do apologize if some of that wasn't showing up. I've moved it all into frame, so now it is easier to see. And I can zoom in just a little bit so it's even easier to see what I'm working on. I just need to keep an eye on my computer screen because it'll be even easier for me to move out of frame now that I've zoomed in further on this little area. I'm never entirely sure if it's better to show more of my workspace, even if that means that the work itself is smaller, or if you all will prefer seeing stuff as close up as possible. So feel free to let me know any preferences you have now or in the future. I kind of want to do some other flower shape over here. I'm not entirely sure what. That might be a good opportunity in a moment for me to pull out my my little notebook and see if there's anything that calls to me. And I'm just gonna add more little flowers over here. And somehow I'm feeling comfortable working smaller right now. Maybe I'm just getting a little bit more used to the way this pen nib acts on this surface. It is making this scratchy sound, which you probably either love or hate right now. I'm kind of enjoying it. But it does go along with the way that the nib feels, so maybe that's one reason I kind of like hearing it, because that sound just echoes what I can feel with my hands, and I really do love the tactile nature of physical art. Oh, sorry. You may not hear that music, but if you do, there's a gentleman who lives in our neighborhood who likes to ride around on an electric bicycle with his very, very young toddler-age child on either the seat in front of him or the handlebars. I'm not entirely sure which. And he has a speaker on his bike and he blasts his music as he goes up and down all of the little cul-de-sac streets in the neighborhood. And he has just blessed us with his presence, and I imagine he will be back. And I've got this wonderful splatter over here from these, so honestly, I love working with tools like this nib here that are at times hard to predict or control. It forces me to accept the shapes and lines and splatters and all of the stuff that ends up on my page. And it allows me to feel a little bit more loose and free when I work. And I just really love that. I used to be very, always be very tidy with all of my work, and worked really hard to control it. And I have just been much happier and really enjoyed the work so much more now that I am so loose with it. So I have a sudden desire to put this sort of like a sketchy line here on this, and I think I'm going to go through at least on this page, and do it to all of the pots, although I think I'm gonna use the blue that I've been using here for the flowers on every other panel, and then this jug here. But then whatever color I use for the flowers around the jug, I will use on the other panels. That just seems like a fun idea to me. So that is very saturated. I'm going to move it over here. And yeah, I think I'm actually going to go right back over these green leaves that we did with the blue ink, so that they actually show up. But I'm gonna mirror them pretty closely in the hopes that the green is still gonna be like peeking in and around everything, so it still adds. And I do think that's actually working pretty well here. Oh, jeepers. I think I'm still working in frame. I'm actually going to move my little stool. I work at a tall desk. So I move my little stool over so that I am less likely to be leaning away from you all. All right. This is moving a lot faster and freer. Bike man is back. Seems like he and his kid really enjoy these bike rides, and so I do applaud them for that, at least. I do not enjoy the bike rides because they tend to take me out of whatever I'm in here in my little art space focusing on. I get very distracted when they roll by, but you know, they don't know that. They're not trying to distract me. Okay. Yeah, this is actually hard enough to see the green that I'm having to like lean my head in different ways to make sure that I can see the lines well enough to parallel them, at least on this blue vase. So going back over them was definitely the right call. And I kind of think that using this blue here is going to help make things more cohesive across all 4 parts of the little concertina pages I've got. So that's quite nice. All right. Hey. And I have a feeling that just like yesterday, one of 2 things is going to need to happen here. I'm either going to have to stop talking to you and just mute myself for the rest of the video and speed it up so that you can see what else I do and you're not sitting here for however long that takes while I try to come up with interesting things to say. Or we're going to have to come back to it again a different day, because honestly, these are going to have to dry because the ink on this sheet that we just did is not dry, and the ink on this sheet is not dry. I can work on it a little bit longer because I wanted to put a second color on that other piece. So I can do that. But then, yeah, I may work on this off camera for a bit, or come back to it tomorrow. I'll have to decide what mood I'm in, actually. That's right, we're switching back. And do I want to do pink or gold. They both will work in here. Pink, I think, is going to have a little bit more contrast and show up a little bit better. So let's give that one a go. I was leaning towards gold color-wise. I think it works well with this color palette, but I think I have a hard time seeing it. Yeah, this pink is showing up, at least over here. I need to put something else. I haven't figured out yet what floral shape or leaf shape I want to put over there. Okay. Pink on pink line here is not quite as exciting, but that's okay. I still think it's gonna show up enough, partly because of the iridescence and partly because those lines are gonna be echoed throughout. So it's gonna be one of those things your brain looks for because you can see it clearly on these other two vases on either side. I think you'll know to go there. All right, it's time. I need a book. I need some inspiration. So this is just I don't know how you're supposed to say it, Leciterm journal. And move that out of the way because it's wet ink. And I'm still very much working on coming up with more leaf and flower shapes. I'm not entirely sure why that page was left blank in the middle. Maybe I just thought I had more leaf shapes to come. Let's see here. Anything calling to me? I want to put something in this vase over here. Something with like these bell shapes might be some fun contrast with the little pointy flowers that are already there. Or something like this little cluster flower. Or this guy. Yeah, some sort of bell shape I think is the way to go. A bell cluster something. Oh, the other reason I pulled it out though is because we're currently working in pink and I need flowers to put around my jug. And I want something that's pretty easy to just doodle a lot of. I like these little guys, but are they too similar to my round circles? I think so. Could do something like this. It's similar to the C-shaped flower, but it's connected more. So I think that might be the way to go. All right, back in action. I'm gonna do some little fluffy petals there. I'm trying to vary the stop and start so that it clusters up nicely. I think that works pretty well. And then I can do smaller ones. Once I start doing these, I'm sorry, my phone is dinging because I forgot to put it on silent. Once I start making these, I have a tendency to just want to keep adding and adding and adding to the little clusters, so I am having to stop myself from doing that. But other than that, it seems like it's pretty successful. And the hardest part really is just getting it started, and then you just make these little, I don't know what I'd call this shape. It's kind of like a soft M all around. And then with some of these areas, I don't want them to be completely empty. So I'm gonna do a bit of sort of started with a couple of them, I started as circles, but I really think the sort of spiral makes more sense there, so. And those are different enough actually from these circles that they're working okay. Just there's way too much empty space around the first flower shape I was doing, and it was bothering me, and I can't really go smaller with this particular pen nib without it causing problems, so I needed something else to fill it in. Oh my, you can't see it again. And there we go. Here's what I'm gonna do. I think, yeah, that's the problem. There we are. I keep wanting to pull it close to me while I'm working, so I just have to adjust that camera. Oh, cat hair. Who is shocked? Can I get it? Oh, there it is. It got caught in the nib. It's gone. Problem solved. And you can actually see what I'm doing for the most part. Other problem solved. Ooh. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I could doodle in this for forever, and I probably will get bored of the doodles before I feel like this piece is finished. So we might come back to it on another day, but we also may move on to something else. I am just gonna go ahead and add my bell shaped flowers that I want to put here, that I know I want to put here, and then I think we might call it for today, and then we'll come back and play with something else tomorrow. I'm starting to not get back my full energy, but I am starting to get back a little bit more of that creative mojo. I was watching someone playing around with watercolors on a YouTube video yesterday, and that was getting me in the mood to get my watercolors back out. So there is every chance that I will have moved in another direction by tomorrow. That's the hardest thing, I think, with some of this daily journal stuff, is that there's going to be a part of me that wants to finish things to show you, but that's just not how I work. Okay, that's a weird flower. Something went wrong. You know what? That happens in nature all the time. So I am not going to worry about it. Let's go back to the original way that I did this, which is a little bit of a U bell shape that narrows towards the top. There we go. and then a little circle. I guess it wasn't all that narrow. And then I like the idea of drawing little circle buds for bits that haven't bloomed yet, because that's really nice when that happens. You have those lovely little vines that have got, you know, partial blooms, and then they can obscure other blooms. Whoop. I love when the pen does that. I know other people probably don't. I love that big blob of ink. It just adds a lot of character. And I still feel like something's missing over here. I can add more of those, or I can do another sort of a flower. I'm just gonna do something. There was that little circle cluster flower was really calling to me. I'm kind of sad that I didn't do it, so I'm doing it anyway. Right there. Now I have a whole arrangement. Yeah, these pieces need more of that. I'm kind of in the mood to just do some other type of doodling, maybe. I don't know yet. But these need to dry. I think this one's probably mostly dry, but I don't want to turn that one over yet. It looks like it's dry enough to deceive me and still wet enough to smudge. So we'll call it here. And then I don't know what we're going to do tomorrow. It could be more of this. It could be anything. It's possible that I'll come back in here with, I don't know. Ooh, something else entirely. Whoa, that's a lot of ink on my hands. I'm going to go wash this off, kinda. It's not going to wash off all the way. It'll be here tomorrow, I guarantee. And that's okay. It's also possible I've got enough time tonight. I may get inspired while I'm thinking about what I want to do tomorrow, and actually record tomorrow's video tonight, if that happens, because I know tomorrow I am going to be spending as much time and energy working outside as I possibly can. I'm behind on some very pressing yard work. So either way, regardless of what I do and when I record it, I'm going to see you tomorrow. If you like this weird doodle time with me today, please like and subscribe and hit the bell so that you'll get notified when tomorrow and future videos come out. And Sassy and I will see you next time.